Have you ever wondered if you should wholesale or flip a deal when it comes in and you have troubles making the decision? I get asked that all the time on how I make that decision. So I want to walk you through that decision-making process today because there's not really like a one-size-fits-all offer answer, but I'll walk you through all of the things that I think about. What I want to do is I actually made my team a document and I'm happy to share it inside of the community. If you don't know, we have a Facebook community and a school community. Let me go ahead and bring it up. Wholesaler flip. A lot of times investors I'm just going to walk you through the guide. It makes it easier. Let's just say you get a deal and you could maybe make 100 grand flipping it or 70 grand wholesaling it. But everyone has different goals and ways in which they operate. So we really need to start thinking about what's the scope of work, what's the ARV, the cost, the timeline, and all the risk involved. Then we have to also think about the business side of things. Like, am I behind goal or above goal this month? Do I need cash faster right now, regardless? Do I have time to wait to make the extra money? Is the house worth the risk waiting for the extra money, right? So it's not always about the biggest number. It's about the best business outcome. And so we have to understand our choices. Now in wholesaling, we already know it's way faster to make the money. You don't need capital involved, at least not much. There's not a lot of operational involvement. And then that end buyer, right, when you assign it to them, they carry all the rehab risk. Now, on the flip side, if we decide to flip it, right, we're purchasing it, renovating it, carrying those costs, reselling the property. And a lot of times they do have larger profit margins. Or let's say you get a lead and like you can only make 3 to 5 grand wholesaling it, but you can make 40 grand flipping it. That's a totally different story. Now, flip, you have more control over the project itself, more management responsibility, greater execution risk. You can't predict the market. And so there's a lot more risks that do come with flipping a house. I love this little analogy. So we always say like wholesaling is selling the recipe, but flipping is opening the restaurant and serving the meal, right? The restaurant may create the more margin, but it also needs the kitchen, the staff, the ingredients, the time, and the systems, and the ability to absorb problems. The question is not whether flipping can make more. The question is whether the extra margin is worth everything required to earn that money. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's talk about the decision map, right? So let's just walk it from top to bottom. One is cash need. What does the business need right now? So I'll give you an example. We had a quarter, actually it was about a year ago, when the market started turning and we were not hitting our cash goal in that quarter. Now, we did have enough houses locked up to hit it, but unfortunately, we went from like 1 week days on market to like 2 months days on market. And so although we knew the money was going to close eventually, we needed the cash now to sustain our goals and operation and healthy net margin. So when we were presented with wholesales at that time, we would typically take the wholesale to fill the company's cash need. And then talk about what is the real wholesale profit? What can a verified buyer actually pay you? So can they pay you 5 grand, 10, 20, 30, 40? We also need to verify, like, what am I actually going to make on this? And then compare that to what is the actual flip profit after all of your costs, your days on market, and you account for all of that. And how much more does this flip actually make from this wholesale? And does it fit in your buy box? Like, guys, even if a house makes 150 grand, if it's a gut house, we don't do it. We have a very strict buy box. Everything we touch is in that buy box. And I have lots of horror stories, and I could share them on another video of when we bought a house outside of our buy box. And even though we thought the spread was huge, it still ran into tons of problems, okay? We need to talk about the risk and capacity, right? Do you have the capital for it? Do you have the private money? Do you have the team to support getting the flip done accurately and on time? What if something happens and costs rise or time slips or days on market are higher, right? So once we factor in all of those things, then we choose which exit strategy meets our goals. And so we want to start with the business needs. Like, here's a good example of the goal is $200,000 a month. I'm currently at $135,000. So I have a $65,000 gap. And he has a wholesale available right now to make $40,000. Okay. So should we close on the wholesale deal or take the flip? So remember, profit is the fuel to the business. So cash flow is whether the fuel is actually in the tank today. Okay. And you can have multiple flips on paper and still run short of cash before they ever close. And so if something for 40,000 is closing in 2 weeks, it might be more valuable to the company than an additional 35,000 that doesn't come for 5, 6, or 7 months, right? Then we want to compare all of the real numbers. So if the verbal offers 50,000 from somebody to buy your wholesale deal, but they don't have verified funds, they don't have earnest money, but they do have a verified offer at 38,000 where the guy's ready to put EMD down, etc., then we really have to also take those things into consideration on the wholesale side, and measure the extra profit. Then we also, like I said, want to check the buy box. So for us, ours is 1945 and newer. We only do cosmetic, like predictable scopes. We only do it in markets we highly know, and we have a trusted general contractor, and we have very repeatable systems. But if it's outside of our model, we do not do full gut rehabs. We don't do major structural things. We don't do scopes that are outside of our normal systems. We don't do things with knob and tube, etc. So we don't fall outside of that regardless of the amount of money that it could make. And predictability matters to us. Like on the left, you'll see it has a paved road, like paint, flooring, kitchens, baths, scopes that my team has done repeatedly. What I don't want is these unmarked trails where like it might have fire damage or structural work, something that I would say we're not the expert in, okay? So the example here, you get a $50,000 wholesale profit versus a $100,000 projected profit on a flip, but the property requires a full gut. So for us, we would say it's a wholesale. We also want to verify the rehab and the retail exit strategy. So how predictable is this rehab going to be? Is the scope very clear and predictable? Is the contractor pricing and timing accurate? Are the structural or mechanical unknowns present? Is the contingency large enough for it? And then let's talk about the exit, right? So are the comps selling fast? Are they truly actual comps? Are they supported by a deep buyer pool? Like you'll know that based on the days on market. You'll want to read the agent remarks and see, oh, did they have multiple offers or anything? Also on the comps, you want to see, did most of them sell below their list price or at their list price? And so all of those things we want to take into consideration when we're deciding if we want to wholesale or flip this deal. And then we also want to check our own capital, right? Acquisition and rehab funding are confirmed. The cost of capital still leaves enough margin. The company can survive overruns and delays. Like we also have to take a step back and say, what is our own cash position and the capacity that we have when taking down this deal? Okay. Another thing is if you do a lot of flips, like if you have project managers, are they at capacity or can they handle it without delays? That's another big one. So ultimately, we run the flip less the friendly assumptions. So if you have your best case, your expected, and your downside, and then you really need to make the decision from there. Here's 3 deals. If you guys want to download this, it just says, hey, if it's a $50,000 wholesale, $100,000 flip, but it's a full gut, we would wholesale it. $5,000 wholesale, but $55,000 flip, and it's cosmetic, we're going to flip it. If it's a $40,000 wholesale, $80,000 flip, but behind the quarterly cash goal, right? Like we're behind on our quarterly goal and other flips got delayed. So we're like, no, we need the cash today. So because of that, even though the flip would make 40 grand more, we're taking the wholesale property. And then this is just really helpful to have a decision tree map of flip versus wholesale. Now, again, there is no one size fits all offer on this. Everyone has different goals and ambitions, but that's really the decision-making process that we go through when we are debating on if we should wholesale or flip this. If this was helpful, guys, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, I answer them all. And by the way, join our community. It's free. I do live training every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on stuff that's happening inside of my business that's relevant, and I'm seeing it across everyone in the community. See you inside.